Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are making some crazy techno synth horn that sound like this. If I play it in solo. So this is kind of your classic techno synth horn, but a bit on steroid with a lot of modulation to make it a little bit more interesting. And today we're gonna recreate from scratch this type of sound. If you like this type of sound, there is an artist called Jellyman, which is very good at this type of evolving synth horn, techno synth horn, with a lot of modulation and variation. So yeah, let's get started. So basically this rack and preset is from my wavetable Technobank number 4, and we're gonna recreate from scratch. So like this you can learn what makes the sound, and I will also give along the way tips to how you can appropriate it yourself. So we're gonna need wavetable. You're gonna need to play a lower note around F0. And usually what works well for this kind of brassy horn, it's a sawtooth, so you can still get to your basic, but choose the saw dual one. Alright, one thing I like with sawtooth is when they are a bit more gritty and growling. So if you go to modern modulation, you have this wrapping effect. So if you go positively, get this nice tone out of it. What usually works well as well with sawtooth is adding some unison. It's gonna detune the synth, make it a little bit more fatter. It's gonna add some stereo, so perfect for that. So we're just gonna go with the classic unison, and we're gonna increase the amount almost until the maximum. Now, number of voice I will say with 4. Alright, then instead of amplitude envelope, we want something blasting straight away with the volume at the maximum. So when you go to your amp envelope, actually let me put wavetable like this so you have a better view. When you go to the amp envelope, you have no attack, you put the sustain straight up at the maximum. And then here we're gonna add a bit of release because you know you're gonna press a little bit longer the note and then you release it. But it's usually nice if you have a little bit of tail on your sound. You don't want something that will stop too shortly after. So yeah, something around like this, 1.5 seconds. So you have a nice fade out like this. Alright, so the first type of modulation you can do obviously is a filter modulation. So here we're gonna use a 24 dB low pass filter. You can use one with a bit of drive if you want. You can. That's gonna be our first type of modulation we can do. So you're gonna see there is some modulation, we're gonna do them manually, but there is some that we can kind of automate, so you don't have to do. And so this we're gonna group it, right click on group or Ctrl G, and we're gonna group this to the filter. And one thing I like to do is to modulate the filter. We're gonna use envelope 2 and we want to open it fast. The idea is to bring down the filter to open it fast. So we bring down the filter, but because of the envelope, we're gonna open fast. So here, yeah, envelope 2. Maybe something like that. Maybe we can crank up the release a little bit more. So that's for our low pass filter, but a great way to add variation and modulation is to actually use a high pass filter as well. So here in Wavetable you have 2 filters, so you can even add a high pass filter here. And we're gonna keep the 12 dB clean. So basically the idea is to get this movement like this. If you crank up the resonance, you will have like a sweeping effect. So this, according to your taste, you can accentuate it or not. I will leave it around 40% for now. So to modulate this filter, we're gonna use envelope 3. And again, we're gonna modulate around 58-60%. And here we have something straight up. We want something more, maybe smooth, having like something will slightly sweep the filter up and then go down. So we can set the attack around 2 seconds to have this kind of effect. And you can see like now it's because of the decay, it's go down back pretty fast. So maybe we can accentuate this decay. And another thing we can do is with the slope as well, making it a little bit more like this. Not too bad, and then a bit more release. So like this, in case I release the note before the end of the cycle of the envelope, it doesn't go back too fast. So basically what I've done for this rack preset is actually I've mapped the peak to the macro 2, so this way you can control this high pass filter modulation. If you don't want, you leave it like this, but if you want maybe a little bit later, you can just say to have it later, or if you want it straight up. So that's a great way for you to automate or know the modulation. Now another way to add interesting modulation is to add this kind of staccato effect. So for that we kind of need the LFO, which is gonna cut the sound on the amplitude. So we're gonna use LFO2 to modulate the amplitude. You're gonna hear how it sounds. Or here now we have a saw wave. You could use a sawtooth. Maybe you make sure the retrigger is on because you want every note you play, you want the LFO to start from the beginning. You can probably put the rate on sync and having something like in the 116. So that's not bad. You can maybe play with the shape to make it more like a square, but it's better to straight away take a square waveform. And you have this nice staccato effect. You can even play with the shape a little bit. Until you find a nice movement. And here, like a little bit like with the envelope 3, I want a kind of a fade in or a slower attack on how the LFO affects the sound. So here you have this attack parameter, which is gonna smoothen, you can see, up your LFO. Basically what I mean is gonna progressively go to the full range of modulation. And so you get something like this. At first you don't have the modulation, but then you start to hear the modulation and it increase more and more. Maybe a little bit 1 second, it's enough. Okay, so with the high pass filter. So that's a lot of movement already. And now we're just gonna process it a little bit to make it a bit more stand out. So we're gonna use amp. Usually I like to use amp when I use sawtooth. It has this buzziness, this noisy, this aggressivity to the sound. So make sure it's in dual to don't have that. I'm gonna use the clean one and I'm gonna kind of boost everything. This is usually experimenting until I found what I like the most. I like to overdo it and then after to kind of dial down with the dry wet. Okay, cool. Then not necessary, but what I've done for preset, what I like usually to do is to EQ a little bit. Usually a low cut work well, especially like on the, you cut the main fundamental resonance. Yeah, you can almost go until 80 Hz. You can sometimes boost the Q as well. Then you can just like kind of boost where you feel like. Well, not bad. Maybe. Yes, cool. And then a big high pass from, I would say, like 300 Hz maybe. Just to bring like high note and a low cut at 15. This usually adds a lot of character. You cannot really hear it properly up until I put some reverb. So I'm gonna put some reverb, even though it's at the end of the chain. But just like this, you will hear how the effect affects the sound better. So I use the reverb just in convolution mode, and I use the real plays and so like a left right. It's a bit too much. I'm gonna reduce the GK. Obviously, the dry weight amount is way too much usually. Around that is better. I like to crank up the stereo a little bit, bass in mono. Pretty loud the minimum. Can reduce maybe the send a little bit. So let's see how the effect affect the sound with the reverb. Big difference, and the same with the EQ. It gives this nice character. Now another way to add variation is to use a little bit of delay. So I'll put it before the reverb. You can use like a classic ping pong delay. I like to put it in 3 there, and maybe something more like that. Here I've actually mapped the delay to the macro, and it's to macro 5, and I realized actually I forgot to map the other, was the LFO scatter on macro 3. One was the amp on macro 4. Okay, and the same is the delay. Like what I've done in the example, I basically add delay just at the end of the sound. So like this, you get delay just on the end and it doesn't get too messy. For now, I'm gonna leave it like this. I will show you later the automation. And yeah, usually this sound, I like them more like in the face. So I'm gonna do some kind of group processing. First, I make sure that the bass under 120 Hz is in mono. I can accentuate the width with this utility parameter. It's not a big difference, but still I like. And then as the overall processing, group processing, I will use the drum bus. I love that just to compact everything, make it a bit more in your face. So what I will do first, activate the compressor. Maybe more drive, maybe a bit more crunch as well. I love adding some crunch to add some mid-high to the sound. If you feel it's too loud, you can still like reduce the input to your taste. And I will use the transient. I will go negatively. This is gonna act kind of a gate, like it's gonna shut down a little bit the tail of your reverb. And yeah, that's pretty much it. One thing I haven't done for this track that I've just thought now that I could have done, it's maybe as well adding some autopan if you want to have your sound, for example, going around your head. That's something you could do. That can be interesting. Actually, I'm gonna map it as well. Macro 8. Here there is some macro I haven't put. It was the reverb one on macro 6. And this is like kind of your loudness, how much loudness you want on macro 7. So this anyway will provide you the preset so you can rename it how it was originally. Now one thing it's interesting is even though I have some, let's say, automatic modulation, like the LFO are automatically modulating your sound, you can still go even further and modulate this macro. So here I have the note, which is 1.5 bars. And if you go to modulation, for example, the cutoff, I make it start low, go up, and then go back low. So the half pipe filter is just moving after. Same, the scatter is kind of fading as well. You really hear it after 1 bar. And like I said before, the delay just at the end, it helped to get your horn clear, and you have the delay just really for the tail to make it kind of last a little bit longer. And yeah, you get this nice horn sound. One other way you can modulate as well, I haven't shown you. You could, for example, play with the fold as well to kind of add a bit more, even more modulation. You can really get wide, obviously. Even like here, I just put it 1.5 bars, but you could even go longer and make like kind of longer horn. Which, why? A lot of room to experiment and to get crazy. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. So I will put the preset in the description. You can grab it for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe before to grab it. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.